Welcome to Story Chats at Inspy Romance. I'm Elizabeth Madry, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Narelle Atkins.
I'm Valerie Comer.
Mollie Rushmeyer is here today with us to talk about her recent release, The Bookshop of Secrets. A born and bred Midwestern gal, Mollie Rushmeyer makes her home in central Minnesota with her husband and two spunky, beautiful daughters. She's not only a bibliophile, the dustier the better in her opinion, she's a true Anglophile at heart. Tea and coffee fuel her travels, by Google Maps at least, and her passion for the written word. So thank you so much, Mollie, for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. So we're going to start off, as we often do, with having you tell us a little bit about the book. It's like, in lieu of reading the back cover copy that everybody can go to Amazon and read, give us the, the elevator pitch, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mollie version.
The Mollie version. Well, try not to be too long-winded then. So
you've got half an hour, and then you get no questions.
Okay. Clock is ticking, right? Okay, so this story is about Hope Sparrow, and she is a survivor of human trafficking. That is her background, but that's not the focus of the story. The focus of the story is her arriving in this North Shore Minnesota town, taking place on the shores of Lake Superior, in a little town that I made up, but is inspired by some of the small towns that I love in that area of Minnesota, which is, again, where I live. And she is arriving there to find a stack of books that her mother has left for her. And these books are all first editions, they're antiquarian. And she has this sort of rumor in the back of her mind about a family treasure. And so not only are the books sort of this missing puzzle piece in her life, in kind of filling in some gaps about who she is, who her family was, she also is kind of looking for that treasure so that she can start doing what she wants to do with her life, which is opening up bookmobile / food truck, because why don't those exist already, right?
Exactly.
The two.
I could get your vision. Yes.
Yeah.
And so the crux of the story is her looking for those books. She encounters a lovely family that owns this old bookshop. It's sort of overrun with books. And she, and these books that she's looking for are supposed to be there, but she can't find them. The shop owner is dealing with the beginning stages of dementia and can't remember if he has them or not. And so then she also encounters his grandson. There's a little romantic thread there. And they're looking for the books throughout the story. And what I hope happens is that she kind of realizes that it's really not about finding these books. That's not the most important thing, because she wants to get them and get out of there. But she realizes that there's something a lot more important. There's a different kind of treasure, if you will, to be found in this place through the people and the stories of her family to be found. So yeah, so that's, I guess, the book in a nutshell.
Yeah, it is. It's good. It's good. All right. So I know we talked about in our little Facebook chat, the three of us, we all really enjoyed this book, which was fun.
Wonderful.
So we all have a question. So, and Valerie, it looks like you're at the top of the list. So you and Cooney are up next.
Cooney? She's like 90% asleep here. So as you mentioned in your recent blurb, Hope Sparrow is a victim of human trafficking. And it seems like it really shapes who she is.
Yeah.
Right. So it is important to the story in that way. Yeah. So I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say that, because you already did say it.
Right. Yeah. And I kind of want people to know that.
The official blurb does hint of a tragic past.
Yeah.
And parts of the truth come out early in the story and then carries on. So I'm curious what led you to bring this kind of a background into your main character, and about the research and that sort of thing.
That's a great question. And I haven't talked about this a lot except for like, I guess I had a question about it at a library reading, but excuse me, I have asthma and it's like really acting up right now. Okay, so the thing that sort of sparked that as sort of her background, her dark moment story in the background, is that I actually worked at a pregnancy resource center for almost 8 years,
Okay.
where I live here in central Minnesota. And as I, just began that career, and I thought that was going to be my long-term career, but it ended up not being, but it's where I needed to be at the time. I had just graduated from college with a psychology degree and then worked at this pregnancy center. What we were hearing a lot about, and it was kind of a newer concept to me, this idea of modern day slavery. I was like, what, that exists? And it, was really, really tragic to hear some of these stories coming out from that. And our whole staff and many other, mental health organizations and that kind of thing in the area were getting trainings on how to spot human trafficking and, how to be a safe place for people to come and share that if they needed help, what to do, who to call, all of that stuff. And so as I just started to learn more and more about that, obviously it was just like heartbreaking stuff.
Oh, I'm sure.
But one thing that I learned was that there is hope to be found there. That people were escaping, there were rescues taking place. There's a lot more work to be done out there. It's in no way, shape, or form an extinct problem in the world today, but there are organizations devoted to rescuing these girls, men, women, and children, I should say. And so it just became an issue very near and dear to my heart. And as I, kind of phased out of that part of my life and took up writing and things like that, I just sort of started thinking back to that time. And I had actually had an opportunity to talk with several times and actually interview twice a woman who was the executive director in starting up a safe home, transitional home for women and children who are getting out of that life and had been rescued or escaped. And she just talked about how, even though it's such a dark thing in our world, like that there is hope for those people afterwards, that they can get, the counseling and the help that they need to, pursue a life and whatever they choose to do with it for the rest of their life. So that just became something that I really wanted as sort of the background to show that no matter what we've been through, it could be the darkest thing, that God has light and, life beyond that for us. And that he can help us through that. So yeah, so I hope that kind of answers
it sure does. And I love that the character's name is Hope, and I won't go into how that all happened. But it's very apt, I guess, in the circumstance. So just a little shout out to that, and readers can figure it out as they get through the book. So
say I appreciated the fact that while you did still deal with all of that in her past, it wasn't a dark book. So many of the books that touch on this issue or really explore the issue end up being very, very dark and hard to read. And while this was still very much part of the story and part of Hope's life, it was not this big, heavy, dark book that like you can't read it before bed, or that it still is a really accessible story. So I don't want people to like hear that and then be like, oh nope, don't nope out because of that topic.
Exactly.
It is handled so beautifully, and it's not dark at all.
No,
good. I'm glad to hear that. I definitely didn't want it to be.
The romance arc, I think, was done really well. Someone may have a question on that, so I won't go any further.
Yes.
But with her history and her background, I really appreciated the way the romance panned out in the story.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, so Narelle, you're up.
I am up. So I love lots of things about this book, but one thing I really loved was the treasure hunt mystery in the story. So being an Aussie, I'm really not that familiar with the history of the Great Lakes and Lake Superior. And I had no idea that there were pirates on Lake Superior. I don't know why that never crossed my mind. I think because I live in an island country where surrounded by oceans, I think of pirates as being in the Caribbean or on the out there somewhere in the Pacific or the Indian Ocean or the Great Southern Ocean, and don't think about it being on a lake.
I think we can blame the movie industry for that, Narelle.
Right.
Yes, I think we can. Absolutely.
I just want to say, as having grown up in the United States school system, I did not also know that there was pirates.
Okay.
And growing up in Canada, mostly in the West, but some in Manitoba, which is not that far from Lake Superior. I also, and you know what, Beth, it's that we don't think about the things we don't know about, right? If somebody goes like, what do you not know? Well, I don't know what I don't know.
I don't know. Right. But I previously also did not know about the pirates. So you're not alone, Narelle. It's not.
All right. So anyway, getting to my question, I always have an intro before I get there, don't I? So did any real life pirate history inspire the treasure hunt mystery in the story? Is probably my question.
Yeah, definitely. And I just would share that opinion with all of you. I didn't know about the, Lake Superior, Great Lakes pirates until I started researching for this book. And one of the things that I like to do in all of my books, even though they are contemporary stories, I just love history so much that I just love weaving some interesting, piece of history through this contemporary story. And so when I started to think about, what I could, kind of thread through the background of this story in that historical sense, I just happened upon like some articles about Lake Superior history, the Great Lakes, and started reading about how there were actual pirates, not exactly what we think, not the Disney version, Pirates of the Caribbean, but there were groups of people who would sail around and they would take goods from merchants, steal them. There was some killing that happened and other nefarious things. And sometimes it was the trading and selling of people. Sometimes it was the stealing of things like alcohol, any kinds of like as in the book how they talk about stealing treasures, things like that. I mean, it could be valuables, and it certainly was merchandise and things that those ships were passing between ports and trying to get onto land to trade or sell. So it was very interesting to look through that because I'm a Minnesota gal. I, have been here all my life and I didn't know any of that stuff either. Maybe if I had grown up more, up north where some of that stuff would have been part of the history there, maybe I would have heard about it. I don't know. Maybe they teach that a little bit more in school up there, but I didn't know anything about that either until I just happened upon it. So
it's fascinating, I think. Yeah.
So, and I appreciated as a not super history person that you had those historical things, but it didn't, again, we didn't get heavy into them. It didn't feel like, oh, this should have been a split time novel or anything,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It was there and it was really rich and part of the story, but it wasn't so much that I was like, they're talking about history again. That often happens when I read.
Like, we're contemporary, right? I mean, we just are.
What's that doing there?
That's in the past. I don't want to know that.
Whereas I love reading historicals, so I was there with bells on.
You probably could have done more for Narelle, but that's okay.
Yeah. I was happy. I love the book. It's all good.
That's awesome.
So even with like trafficking and pirates and all of this, it's still, to me, and I think Valerie and Narelle would agree, a love story. It's still very much, it's not about the pirates or the trafficking so much as it is still at its heart a love story, which I loved because like hello romance novels.
Right.
So
Me too.
tell us favorite things about Hope and Ronan and why those make them perfect for each other.
You know, when I set about writing this, and I can't write something without romance in it. Like this might be categorized as just straight up contemporary fiction, that kind of thing. But it really is a heavy romance thread. And when I thought about who would be the right match for Hope, I knew it had to be somebody who was very sensitive to her needs, who was calm, patient, somebody that was not going to push her to open up because that's so difficult for her. She just really needed to be able to do that on her own and in her own time. And so not that I wanted to make the perfect human being, because Ronan has his own issues. He's got some deep wounds of his own that he is working throughout the story, as you guys know.
Yeah.
But he needed to be somebody that was just the right match for all the things that she had gone through and that have affected her personality and her ability to trust and open up to people. And I don't know, I just dreamed up this Ronan and he seemed like the right guy for her. Not perfect, but perfect for her. So and I guess that, on the flip side, what he needed was somebody who could see and care about him for him, not see him and think of his family and all the drama that has taken place over the centuries for,
back to history here.
Family. Yeah, yes. And also within his own personal history, people have been sort of judging him for years now because of a tragedy that happened on his watch. You just got to read the book to find out about that. But, so he needed somebody really understanding and someone that would care about him, love him for him. And I think that that's, what she does.
Yeah, I would agree. You did a great job. They're both, they're sort of broken. They're both sort of broken, but their broken pieces line up with the not broken pieces in the other person. And so they're still good for each other, even though they're broken.
Right.
Which I like seeing.
Yeah. I think one of the things that was that drew me to him was his sensitivity towards his grandparents, right? It's been a couple of weeks since I read it now. And the issues that they've got with his dementia and so forth. Like he just really seemed to be all the right things there as well. And when you've got somebody who's sensitive to that, the elderly, the small child, the mongrel dog, whatever, whoever the needy person or character is in the book, then it's got to be a big plus for their character.
Right.
Is this for sure only ever a standalone? Do you see where they're like, because I think her friend could use her own story.
Right. And I've gotten that a lot from people, which of course is like, that's wonderful to hear because that means that people are, invested in those characters. Right now it is a standalone. The publisher that I'm working with in this particular line, the Love Inspired Trade, which is kind of a fairly new line for them. They're just doing standalones for that. But I mean, never say never. Maybe it's something where I could write a novella that continues Kat's story, which is her friend. Or maybe at some point they will be more open to, considering another in a series for that. So I'm open to it.
Sure.
That's
Knowing
for sure.
what I do of Love Inspired in general, not this particular line, they are very fond of not labeling things as a series for a particular author, even when they clearly are.
Yeah.
So if anybody from Love Inspired is listening, some of us love series and we'd like to be able to see at a glance if things really do belong together.
Like
So
I've noticed that with a lot of publishers actually lately, now that you say that, it's like you're looking at these books from the same author and you got to go through and, well, when was this one published? Well, when this,
Yeah.
just to figure out.
and
like,
it's
well,
in the
which one
same
is it?
town.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
are they related to each other? Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind even like here, all you're writing next couple books. We'll get them for you. So Kat, write that one. And then also the teenager that Ronan is mentoring, give him like 5 or 6 years. He is fabulous. And now he's got this great backstory. I'd love to know what his life holds. So
that's a great idea.
You ever get bored?
No, he was good.
All my free time.
I can't remember his name, but he was amazing.
I can't either. Was it Travis? I want to say it was Travis, but I don't think
Oh,
it is.
Tate?
Tate.
Is that who you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Close. Travis, almost there.
Yeah, T. There you go.
So tell us more about the bookshop itself. Just tell us, like, kind of, I don't know, close your eyes and envision it and walk us through this bookshop.
Well, and first I have to say, like, there are some gorgeous Victorian homes up near Duluth, which
Hi, Daisy.
Which is where like this whole thing is inspired. And in my mind, like you walk up this big like wraparound porch. It's got like, one of those rounded turrets, on the outside. And when you walk in, Dusty Jackets bookshop, it's going to be just sort of overrun with books, but in the best possible way. So like a book lover's dream, really. Of course, this bothers Hope a little bit. She is a little more organized and she does help to, get it a little bit more, organized and get, the books not so much like toppling towers, but, in line on shelves and things like that. But and then I just see it as sort of like a home that you also work in, because they've got the kitchen and the dining room in the back. They've got, extra rooms and things in the back. The whole, main, what used to be the living space, sitting room, things like that are all part of this bookshop now. And so, and then of course, Hope gets the lucky room of the, rounded room upstairs where she gets to stay when she's hired on to help at the bookshop, which would be like my dream come true room as well.
Most people's dream come true.
All of us want
that
the
part.
tour. Yeah.
I did kind of feel my nose twitching a little bit with all the dust.
Oh, right.
Sneezing,
Yeah.
But I could, I was envisioning it a lot like what you just said. So that came through in the book, in the story for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was so charming.
Open one up somewhere, don't we?
Yeah.
Either that or the food truck bookmobile.
Yeah. The food truck bookmobile.
I'm a little concerned about Hope's dream there because all I can envision is somebody spilling hot chocolate on a
yeah.
I'm kind of crying a little bit inside.
Yeah, that would definitely be a hazard for sure.
Excellent. Well, we're like pretty much bang on for our perfect time right now.
Okay.
So yeah, we're doing great. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about what's coming next and where they can find you in your books?
Sure.
Not that story.
Yeah.
What's that? Sorry, I missed
Apparently
that.
not Kat's story.
I know, not right now anyway. But like I said, let's never say never. So the actual next book that I am working on though, and that is going to be coming out with the same publisher, this Love Inspired Trade, comes out August 29th, 2023, and it's called The Lost Manuscript. And this is kind of a non-traditional love story. So this is a book about an estranged married couple who have to come together to search for this lost manuscript. And it's an illuminated manuscript from the medieval era. And I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like those, like
I do, but tell everyone.
Okay. So it's one, and you probably have seen pictures or maybe seen one at a museum once in a while, but they are the very delicate, intricate, painted manuscripts from the medieval era. And
they often have like a portrait of picture around the words, right?
Yes. Yes. Yep. And
Right.
some pages would be a full, painting of something. Then, other pages were scribed, words. There were very intricate designs a lot of times, like around the words, things like that. And they called them illuminated because a lot of times they were using, very bright colors, first of all, but also they would use gold or silver, leaf to kind of decorate. And so they were kind of shining almost, like they were illuminated. So that is what they're looking for. And it's actually a manuscript that the main character, the female main character, that her grandmother went missing, searching for it. And so just as much as they are looking for the manuscript, and actually really more importantly, they are looking for this grandmother that disappeared, and they're not sure if, it was an accident that she went missing or if something nefarious was going on. Her grandmother had become sort of obsessed with this manuscript that she said, existed, and that it was written by a woman, which was very unusual, of course, as you can probably imagine for medieval times. And she had mentioned to her grandmother or granddaughter that she thought that somebody was actually after her and was sabotaging her research. And her granddaughter, because she had become so obsessed with it, kind of brushed it off and thought, she's just really getting very paranoid and she didn't know what to think about it. But then she goes missing. So as they're searching for it, they're also looking for these clues to figure out what happened to her.
Cool.
And
So is it more of a mystery?
Yes, it's very much, I would say it's a mystery, and it is also a romance.
Well, you said they were estranged, so they
were.
need to figure that out at the end,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yes.
Like
exactly.
married romance is a thing that people love. So, and
Good.
always say that they want more of. Like if you go to a lot of the reader groups on Facebook, there are always people saying that they would like to see more married romance. So, that could be really good. It sounds exciting. Very cool.
Yeah, and I really love, I was able to write this one about a town that I studied abroad in. It's in England, so northern England. Is called Alnwick, and there's a beautiful castle there. And that's actually where I studied while I was in college. And so it was really fun to just bring this place that I love so much into the story. And so the whole, plot of the story takes place in northern England as they're, following these clues and trying to find this manuscript and the grandmother. So
Mollie,
That's so
I just
cool.
want to know, when you were at this castle in England, did you get the turret room?
I did not. Bummer. I know the accommodations for students, I mean, they were adequate, but they were not very royal looking or
all right.
anything like that.
It sounds amazing. And I'm just going to say something really quickly to our Aussie listeners. Mollie's book's available in Big W, which is we don't see that many Christian or inspirational romances available, sort of like in your equivalents to Walmart and places like that. But your book is in Big W, which is very exciting.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Cool. All right. And your website, is it mollierushmeyer.com?
It is Mollie J. Rushmeyer.
Oh, the J. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I had to be difficult that way. But so it's just MOLLIE J, and then Rushmeyer, just like it sounds. It's RUSHMEYER.com. And then I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I am on Twitter, but I don't use it very much. So I would suggest maybe
don't bother.
Let's connect on one of those other ones, probably a little bit more. I do have a newsletter that goes out once a month, and I've got some fun tidbits on there. I do recipe reboots, I do tea and book pairings. And just kind of, let people know about different sales going on for the book or giveaways, things like that. So it's a lot of fun if you want to join in with that as well.
Excellent.
Sounds fun.
It does. Well, thank you so much for joining us, because this was super fun and we really did enjoy the book. Definitely, if you haven't read it yet, put it on your list and get to it sooner rather than later. And I'll put the rather there in my editor always. I always say sooner than later, and my editor is like rather than.
Oh, well, thank you guys so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you guys like the book. I mean,
Yes.
there's nothing better to hear as an author, especially
hear
a
ya.
brand new author.
Definitely. So if you're watching or listening, we'd love to know your thoughts. If you've read it, let us know what you thought, or if you're going to go read it now, because you should. Let us know that as well in the comments. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe and the little bell for the notifications so you never miss an episode. And we will see you next week. And in the meantime, don't forget to fall in love with a good book. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.